this guy or this lady, she got admitted here. He or she will, after 2 years, have the necessary hard skills that are required for this job. But is this person likable? Will he or she fit into the company culture? Will he or she be able to work, be able to collaborate with the folks I have in my team? So will this person be a good add-on to my current team? So that is what they're basically assessing in the US. So it's really a lot more self-driven in terms of finding a job versus in India, where you have companies coming to your doorstep.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we have Anit Agarwal with us. He's doing his MBA from Cornell University. Thank you so much, Anit, for joining us today.
Hey Nikita, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Can you please give a brief overview of your profile and a brief introduction of yourself to our audience?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Anit Agarwal. I'm from Noida, India. And I'm currently at Cornell University doing an MBA. It's my first year, so I've been here for about a month and a half. And prior to that, I have experience in the consulting industry back in India. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm here at the MBA program to kind of I'm doing more of a geography shift. While I'm still aiming for, let's say, consulting, but just consulting for the US market.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, can we start from your 11th grade? Like, what was your dream back then?
Okay. Okay, back in 11th grade, of course, my dream was not to be a consultant. I think that would be pretty odd if someone said that. I don't think anyone dreams to be like a consultant or an investment banker. Back in 11th, you know what? I'll take a step back, and actually from up till 10th, I was really interested in astrophysics, and that is what I wanted to pursue. Then in 11th, I took non-medical, so my subjects were physics, chemistry, math, economics, and of course the fifth one is English. And I was kind of, by my family and I guess a bit due to peer pressure, and maybe that's just what everyone does, I was pushed into the IIT JEE coaching. So I was aiming for that, for doing a BTech. And then ultimately, I ended up doing a BTech from VIT University, Vellore. I pursued electrical and electronics engineering.
Okay.
Yeah, so till 10th, I'd say my dream was astrophysics. Then in 11th, 12th, I was kind of aiming to be an engineer. But I still wanted to kind of, if possible, get into the aerospace field or do something in robotics or automation. Then while I was at VIT, so one thing about VIT back then was there was a Chinese language center there, and now of course it's been closed due to geopolitical issues. But back then, it was there, and it was affiliated with something known as the Confucius Institute, which is a Chinese government initiative to teach Chinese abroad. And so that's why the professors there were also from China. So I joined that center, and I was learning Mandarin Chinese while at VIT alongside my engineering stuff. So and I guess I was really good at it. So that was so yeah. Basically to get to the point, I really wanted to have some sort of I really wanted to incorporate Mandarin Chinese somewhere or other in my career. And then I ended up working for a few years as an ESG analyst and as a Chinese language expert. So from there, then I ended up as a consultant, in a consulting role at in New Delhi. So that's how I kind of I've used one set of skills to kind of leapfrog myself into other industries, and then I ended up in the management consulting world, and then now I'm here pursuing an MBA.
Okay, so when did you decide to do an MBA?
I guess 1 year into my journey in the management consulting industry, I thought I really need to pursue an MBA to kind of upskill myself and learn some, get more management related skills, more strategy and finance related skills. So during my time, there were a couple of projects that I wanted to do, but I simply did not have the skills to do that because they had, in particular, finance or accounting related knowledge, which I did not have given my engineering background. So I think an MBA is just the best degree to get a more holistic level of education in multiple fields. So you end up learning skills in finance and accounting, which is more of a hard skill. Then you really brush up well on your soft skills, like for example, marketing. And then strategy is somewhat, I'd say it's both a hard and a soft skill. So it's a very holistic degree that I guess gives you a lot of different types of skills.
Yeah. And why did you choose to do MBA from US?
Because like long answer short, I was old. So Indian MBA programs, you generally have the average age there is somewhere around 22 to 24. And I was already like 27, 28 by then. So in India, people generally do an undergrad and immediately after that, they do an MBA. So most of the Indian MBA programs, except ISB, most of the Indian MBA programs, the class age is very young. Most of the folks do not have prior work experience, or they have fairly limited work experience. And in an MBA, you really want to be among peers who have somewhat your level of work experience in a variety of different industries, because the thing with an MBA is it's the last time you're going to be a student for most people, and the friends and the network that you build there are going to be lifelong. So 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, if let's say you want to start a company or you're looking to invest in some firm, let's say you're doing VC, then you are going to reach out to your MBA peers that you studied with. Because these folks would then be, I don't know, CXOs or investors in other firms. And that is like the network that you want to build. So you want to really be with people who are about the same age as you and or at least have similar levels of work experience as you.
Okay, and my another question is, how was your experience in applying to Cornell University, and how many other universities did you apply to?
So yeah, I did the usual around 4 to 6 applications. That is what I would recommend to most Indian folks as well, because each application it requires a lot of effort. It seems easy from the outset that you just submit your resume, fill up some boxes, and write an essay. But you have to be very impactful and very insightful and very thoughtful when you're writing, because ultimately, think of it from the admissions committee standpoint. They are looking through hundreds or thousands of applications. So what really makes you stand out?
Yeah.
They will see a lot of people coming from a lot of different countries who work in great companies like Goldman Sachs or McKinsey or Bain or Apple or Microsoft. So what really makes you stand out from the other folks? Like, why should they take you in? And you really need to have a good answer for that question. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it. So yeah, I guess I was applying alongside having a fairly stressful job in the management consulting world. So yeah, the application process, I mean, you have to learn to enjoy it, but it is fairly stressful. Like, there were days where I was working like 12 hours a day, and then after those 12 hours I'd have my dinner, and then I would sit on and work on my applications. So there were days where I got like just 3 hours of sleep. So I'd like go to sleep at 3 a.m., get done writing my essays, and go to sleep at 3 a.m., then wake up at 6 a.m. getting ready for my job. So there is that, but yeah, you have to learn to kind of enjoy the process.
Yeah, this process is very stressful. I have also gone through it. It's so stressful.
Yeah, and just for your viewers' sake, the entire like MBA application standpoint, like the timeline, it takes about a year. So you have to plan accordingly, and that is like it takes about a year after you've given your GMAT. So get done with your GMAT or GRE as soon as you can, and then the entire application cycle will take like about a year, 10 months to a year.
Yeah. So how was your score in GMAT?
So I know recently they've changed the GMAT. Like, there's this new GMAT Focus Edition. I had given my GMAT way back in 2021. So I had given like the old version, the classical version, and I got a 740.
Okay. And do you also have any scholarship or?
Yeah, so the thing with Cornell is they're fairly generous with scholarships. So I have a scholarship, and most of the folks that I do know, like it ranges from like 10% all the way to up to a full 100%.
Okay. So how much do you have, like from 10 to 100%?
I'll keep that confidential.
Okay, then. Very well. So how much does it cost, like the total MBA?
Oh, okay.
degree?
Got it. The total cost, like tuition, is somewhere around for most schools 70 to 100K per year in dollars. So 70,000 to 100,000 dollars per year, and that's just the tuition. After that, there will be like living expenses. So if
That's a
you're like,
lot.
yeah, it is very expensive. It can in rupees it can come out to be like somewhere from 1.5 to 2.5 crores, including all living expenses and all. It depends where you live. If so, Cornell's in Ithaca, which is a college town, so it's a bit like I wouldn't say it's cheap. By no means is it cheap, but it's still a bit cheaper compared to let's say if you're in New York City, then the rent and everything is like just sky high. So yeah, it's a considerable investment, and that's why you need to be really smart in like what are you going to gain out of it. Like, do you have the ample experience to get a great job and be able to pay back your loans or whatever?
Yeah, so did you had any consultant while you were applying for MBA?
Yeah, I did, and I would honestly recommend most folks to reach out to an admissions consultant because there's just when you're applying for an MBA in the US, most probably you're also doing a full-time job, and of course your
Yeah.
consultants will not write your essays for you, and you should avoid anyone who does that because it has to be in your voice. But you get kind of like a professional outlook into into what modifications you can make to your essay. How can you make things seem more impactful, and how can you use better verbs, better articles, or how can you kind of just a better use of language in general. And also you end up also getting professional advice in like which schools to target, like based on your score, based on your experience, because not all schools are the same. They different schools have different strengths, like different industries that that the students perform better, where they get like better results. So you kind of want to be mindful of which universities you apply to.
Okay, and how was the scholarship process? Was it a different application or the same application?
Got it. So it varies. So at least for Indian males, there is no other scholarship. It's just merit based. So there's no other application or anything that you need to write. Based on your normal MBA application, they may choose to give you a scholarship or not. For women, I think there's something known as the Fort Fellowship or the consortium, something like that. I think for that you need to write a separate essay, and maybe there are some interviews involved, and I guess you need to attend some conferences or something. So I think that's the only thing that I know that's available for Indians, and that too just for Indian females. For other folks, like there are a bunch of scholarships mostly aimed at diversity candidates. I think there's a scholarship for I think it's more focused for like American citizens, for like the Native Americans or for Black Americans or Hispanic Americans. There are these different scholarships, but like of course none of that is applicable to Indians. I think only Indian females get the advantage of that Ford Fellowship. That's it.
Okay, and what is the difference between MBA in India versus MBA in Cornell University, and also the difference between MBA in Cornell versus MBA in other B schools in the US?
Okay, so there's two parts to your question. First, I guess the first part I'll kind of give you like the difference between like an MBA in India versus an MBA in the US, and I kind of touched upon that as well. A US MBA is for people who have at least like somewhere around 4 to 8 years of work experience. So the average age in an MBA program in the US is higher than that in India, because in India, most folks they just complete their undergrad and they straight up just do their MBA. They do not go in with a lot of work experience, or sometimes they don't go in with work experience at all. So ultimately in the US you're surrounded by people who have a lot more professional experience, and they come from a variety of different countries. So each countries have their own professional norms, and there are different trends going on in different industries. So you get you get a more global outlook, and you can learn a lot of how to kind of leverage those facts, and kind of implement new strategies in the US. Whereas in India, and in an MBA program in India, it's tailored towards getting a job in India, just like a US MBA program is tailored towards getting a job in the US. So it's just the market factors are different. And one big difference is that, as far as I understand, in India you have like placements. Like companies come to your campus and you interview with them, and you submit your resume, you interview with them, and then you get selected. Whereas you don't have placements in the US. You have to, there's this word called network, which you'll hear 10 times a day in an MBA program in the US. You need to reach out to people, and you need to kind of sell yourself and kind of promote yourself and get them to interview you, get them to know about you. And in the US, the job market or recruitment is very soft skill focused, and it's very dependent on building a network. Like you need to reach out to people, you need to be likable. People will, because you're carrying a brand name, so they're fairly certain that you will have, like, okay, you're at Cornell or you're at Harvard or Stanford or Kellogg or Columbia or MIT Sloan. They know that brand name, and they trust the universities that, okay, this guy or this lady, she got admitted here. He or she will, after 2 years, have the necessary hard skills that are required for this job. But is this person likable? Will he or she fit into the company culture? Will he or she be able to work, be able to collaborate with the folks I have in my team? So will this person be a good add-on to my current team? So that is what they're basically assessing in the US. So it's really a lot more self-driven in terms of finding a job versus in India, where you have companies coming to your doorstep.
Yeah. And for example, a person who just completed their undergrad in India and they want to do MBA in the US, so the best suggestion for them would be like they should get some experience and then apply for MBA programs.
Yeah, I mean, I personally do not know of a single person who's like from India and then immediately after their undergrad just got admitted into a US MBA program. At the bare minimum, you want at least like 1 or 2 years of experience if you've done like something phenomenal. Like let's say immediately, like during your undergrad, if you were kind of building a startup and then you kind of started expanding your startup after your undergrad, and I don't know, you sold it for like $10 million, then yeah, that's amazing. You built a company and you sold it for $10 million in 2 years. Then yeah, you can look to apply. But if you have 0 years of experience, then no, I would not recommend that. The average is somewhere around 5 to 6 years, and it just depends on how phenomenal the work you've done. Like, have you worked in like a big company? Have you had a big role? Do you have leadership experience? Have you led teams of people? All of that is very important for US MBA admissions committees. And yeah, I guess I didn't address the second part of your question, where you talked about like the difference between like Cornell versus other MBA programs. So I'd say Cornell is extremely collaborative. That is, from the day one, we keep hearing the term collaborate and to work with others. Ultimately, the way the culture works in Cornell is all of us students at Cornell, we should not be competing with each other. We got to help each other out. And we're kind of competing with other schools for those jobs. And I'm not saying like other schools are not like that. I just don't know about it. I don't know how competitive versus collaborative other schools are. But yeah, it just kind of leans in a bit on location. Where in Cornell, it's in Ithaca, which is like, it's a college town. So everyone and anyone that you meet is either a student or a professor at Cornell. The entire town's economy is run by the university, basically. Whereas if you're, let's say, in some other university in a big city like in New York or Chicago or Boston, then you'll have a lot of folks who, well, these are big cities, so obviously not everyone is from the university. You'll find different kinds of people from different walks of life. So I'd assume the cultures there are not as cohesive as, let's say, a small college town experience. So yeah, and because of that, that changes the culture. And then there's the other aspect of different schools really have different strengths. Some schools perform better on industries like investment banking or management consulting, whereas other schools, they have better outcomes in tech or, let's say, in marketing. So this is kind of driven by how well their alums have performed in different industries. So it's a mix of like geographical and historical alum factors. Okay, and how does your coursework look like? So I guess it's a bit early for me to comment on my coursework since I've been only here for like a month and a half. But from what I understand, so your first year is the most stressful because apart from your coursework, you're also kind of applying for jobs and you're attending all these recruitment events. So that is where you have the most stress. And then once you have your internship offer, then in the summer, you do like between your first and second year in the summer, you do your internship and hopefully you get a return offer. Then in your second year, since you already have a job in hand, it's mostly you completing your coursework. You're mostly spending a lot of your time managing events. Because when you're in your first year, you get a lot of support from your seniors, from your second years. They help you through your recruitment journey. And then you are expected to give back in the second year. Like when you go into the second year, you are expected to do the same for your new first years. So the first semester is entirely core classes, which everyone has to do. And then in the second semester, it's a mix of core and electives. And at least at Cornell, in the second semester, you need to choose an immersion program. So these are like, immersions are like a pre-selected set of electives that are fine-tuned to certain industries. So depending on which industry you want to work in, you choose that immersion. But you're not bound to it. You can kind of have a more customized experience, if you will. And then the second year is entirely electives, like what courses, whatever course. Like you can pick and choose which course you want to take depending on which skills you want to develop.
Okay, and can you give a timeline to the students who want to apply for MBA in the US? Like the timeline, when should they start preparing for IELTS, TOEFL, or GRE, GMAT, and start like the application process? And I'm not sure if in the MBA you need to contact like email professors before applying, because in PhD you need to do that.
Okay, okay. I'll first answer the first part. So in terms of timeline, so right now I think we're near, it's like mid-September. So we're near like the round one admissions timeline, admission deadlines. So I'll give advice to people who will apply in 2025. Get done with your GMAT latest by, let's say, March of 2025. Get done with your GMAT or GRE, whichever you choose. And you mentioned IELTS. So most US business schools for Indians, they do not require TOEFL or IELTS. There are only a couple of schools, mostly on the West Coast. So I think UCLA and Berkeley Haas, and maybe one or two other schools, most of them on the West Coast, that is in California, they require a TOEFL or an IELTS. So if you're looking to apply for the West Coast schools, then yeah, give the TOEFL as well. But get done with all your exams like GMAT, GRE, TOEFL, or IELTS by like latest by like March end of 2025, and then just start working on your essays, start polishing up your resume, start building your stories. And the round one deadlines are somewhere in August end or like mid-September, in that region. And then you have round two deadlines, which are I think somewhere in the first or second week of January. So that will be January 2026. And round one or round two is what you should apply into. Do not apply like round three. I think at least for Indians, it's too late. So aim to, like, if you're looking at 6 schools, maybe you can apply 3 to 4 in round one, and then 2 to 3 in round two. And then you get your so I think round one offers, like round one decisions roll out, I think somewhere by the end of December or the first few weeks of January. So if you apply in round one, the deadline will be somewhere around early September 2025, and you'll get the decision on that by, let's say, 31st December of 2025. Then your round two deadlines will be somewhere in like the mid of like first or second week of January 2026, and the decision for that you'll get somewhere in March of 2026. And then you need to join the program by, like, you need to spend like April, May, June to sort out your visa and all of that, and then you join the program by somewhere around like August to September. So Cornell starts fairly early. Our program started in the first week of August, and that's quite early. Most programs that I know, they start somewhere either by late August or in like mid-September. Cornell is notoriously early in starting the program.
Okay, and do you need to email the professors
Oh, yeah.
before the application?
Um, no, I do not think you should email professors for an MBA program. They're just too busy. I doubt they'll reply. So what you do need to do, however, is you want to email current students and alumni from that school,
Mm-hmm.
like especially if possible recent alumni. Um, you should at least speak to like a bunch of people, like let's say 3 4 people from each school that you're looking to apply to, and get their perspective, learn about which courses, like which particular courses that they were interested in, or which particular professor's class they really liked, learn about the clubs, learn about any of the experiential learning opportunities. And just when you're going into these calls, like just don't go in blank. First read through the websites of the schools, absorb all the information that's there, and then ask like fairly targeted questions about, okay, I read about so and so learning opportunity or so and so class, could you tell me a bit more about this, which professor takes this, how did you take this class or not, or were you part of this trek or not, and how was your experience.
Okay, and which exam should one prefer, GRE or GMAT for MBA?
Honestly, it doesn't matter. As far as I know, most schools they treat it equally. You can take either the GMAT or GRE. But realistically, as far as I know, like I gave the GMAT, and most folks that I know from India, they also give the GMAT for MBA.
Okay, and what about the recommendation letters? Uh, because I think you need 2 or 3 recommendation letters. Should it be from the professors or where you are working?
No, so you need around 1 to 2 recommendation letters. Most schools require only one. I think a couple of them require two. And so look at it this way: MBA is a professional degree. You already have 5 to 6 years of experience after graduating from undergrad. So you honestly changed as a person both in your personal and professional life. So your professors from undergrad will not be able to give a realistic picture of who you are as a person, who you are as a professional to these schools. So your letter, your if a school asks for only one recommendation letter, it should come from your current supervisor or skip supervisor in your current firm wherever you're working. And if they ask for two, then the second recommendation could be from, let's say, another supervisor from your own firm, like from your current firm, or maybe from your immediate previous firm, depending on how far back you switched. Like if your previous firm was like 3 4 years back, then there's no point reaching out to a supervisor there. So the best the best way to go about this is just get a recommendation letter from your supervisor or skip supervisor in your current firm. And if you're an entrepreneur, you have your startup, then you can get your recommendation letter from, let's say, a notable client that you worked with.
Okay, and other than your work experience, what should is there any extracurricular activities that also enhance your CV and your profile to get admission in MBA?
Yeah, they do look at you both from a professional and a personal standpoint. So any volunteering work that you have done is always a good plus, or any community service, or any let's say you've done work for any kind of political work that you've done, like you've interned at some politician's office or something, or you've done some work for the elections in your country, but like if you've done some like work for the general elections in India or something. Or I think in your undergrad, if you've done like the MUN stuff, Model United Nations, I think that's fairly impactful. So they do look for like community service work that you've done.
Okay, and any advice you want to give to incoming students who are dreaming to go in Cornell
Yeah.
University or top B schools?
Uh, so my advice would be just plan well, plan ahead. Don't wait till the last minute. As I said, the entire cycle takes about a year. So get done with your exams as soon as you can. And for males, I'd say aim for a score of GMAT 740 or above. This is according to the classic GMAT. I know things have changed a bit for the GMAT Focus Edition, so I don't really have much of an idea about that. But in terms of the classic GMAT, an Indian male would want somewhere like 740 or above, and for females, I'd say 720 and above. And
Okay.
yeah, so just get done with your scores, and then Just, I would say, so the four factors that are important in like an application are: one is your essays, two is your resume, third would be your letter of recommendation, and fourth will be your interview. So your interview is not in your hands at the moment because that just depends on whether you get selected for the interview or not. What is in your hands are your resume, your essay, and your letters of recommendation. So just be very insightful and impactful and thoughtful in all three of these.
Okay, and my last question will be, do you think it is a good idea to come to US because it's a recession period and there are not many jobs available right now?
Now I think it's a good time to be coming to the US because what happens is the US economy, in a way, it's a lot quicker. It's a lot more agile and nimble than the Indian economy. So the US economy, the boom and bust cycles are a lot faster than in India. So you had a kind of like a bust a year or two ago, and especially with all the tech layoffs. But if, especially for folks, like if you're gonna apply next year, then you will join next to next year.
Yeah, in fall 2026.
Exactly. And then your internship will be in 27 and you'll get your full-time job in 28. By that time, there'll be some boom going on. So I think right now will be a good time to apply.
Okay, and that's it. I don't have any more questions. If you want to add something more to the audience, then you can say something.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, US is still like the US MBA programs in general, they're a great place to be, a great place to learn. But I would say just remember this in mind. No matter how much you earn in the US, your life in India will still be 10 times more comfortable than whatever in the whatever, irrespective of how much you earn. Your life in the US will never be as comfortable as in India because in India the labor is cheap. So you can just hire people. You can pay people to do all your household chores and stuff, which you cannot do in the US no matter how much you earn. So just have that in mind before you kind of come here. Expect to kind of do everything on your own. And at this point, I would say it may actually be a good strategy to like think not to settle in the US, but think of like coming to the US for a few years, earning, building a great network, and then maybe trying something back in India. Because at this point, I would say it's a bad idea for an Indian citizen to kind of be disconnected from the Indian growth story. Keep a portfolio, have your connections in India as well, and I think in maybe 5 or 10 years time there'll be a lot more opportunities in India as well. So just don't think of coming to the US and just disconnecting yourself from the entire Indian ecosystem altogether. Just try to find the best of both worlds.
Okay, and thank you so much for joining us today. That would be it for this podcast.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Nikita. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, best of luck for all your viewers.
Thank you.